various roles of women and men that have been traditional throughout all ages, and those roles have evolved, and their evolution has evolved in relationship to resources. So believe it or not, masculine and feminine roles, while genetically based and obviously biologically based, have evolved over time as a result of either abundant resources or lack of resources. When there are abundant resources, masculine men relax. They begin to lose their edge. They begin to spend more time at leisurely pursuits because they're not as concerned about survival, which is a good thing on the one hand, but then there is a loss of that unique quality that makes men valuable to society. So this is a paradox and a dilemma that we're all facing now in our culture and in our society. And there's also, it's the source of generation gaps, not just the one that we're experiencing now, but even my father and his father before him. So every generation evolves and grows, and as we become more complex and more sophisticated, we become better at fulfilling our needs, our physical survival needs. So in an age where it's pretty sure you're probably going to survive, right? In other words, if you're watching this show, you've got a computer, you've got internet, you've got mobile phones. In other words, it's not, while you maybe have some attention on that, it's not forefront in your mind. And in past ages, that was the main concern for most people. There's various things geographically and culturally that would cause people to be concerned about their survival, and in those situations where resources are scarce and survival is a question, this is where the roles of masculine and feminine come most sharply into play. I'll first take a look at what are feminine roles and what are masculine roles. And it's important to me that you understand that I am not being sexist in this. And when I speak of masculine or feminine, or I speak of male and female, we have become narcissists and self-absorbed to the extent that we have lost our polarity, which these two things have become so mixed together that we have become androgynous, and polarity is what causes attraction between the masculine and the feminine. Just like the north and south poles of a magnet without a north and south pole, do you know what that's called? A bar of steel. It is very important to have masculine and feminine, or positive and negative, in order to have a long-term committed and romantic relationship. Even if your thing is to have a romantic relationship with the same sex. Regardless of that, one of you will be more masculine and one of you will be more feminine. Otherwise, there will be no attraction. The attraction is the masculine to the feminine and the feminine to the masculine. And I know we've done other shows where we've talked about, okay, how to be a complete person and bring your completion to the other. There was a time in which the accepted thought about the earth was that it was flat. Nobody questioned that. In fact, anybody that tried to say otherwise could be put to death and were severely criticized and persecuted, okay? And so even Pythagoras and several other scientists and mathematicians who proved that the earth was curved kind of kept it to themselves. They waited until the 14th century. I mean, this was discovered in 600 AD that the earth was curved. They didn't know for sure, but then they made mathematical calculations that proved it. So a paradigm is a way of thinking that you don't question, and you probably will get in trouble if you do. There is a way of thinking that my generation was born into, and that began to be questioned in the 60s. By the end of the 60s, you know, men had started to grow their hair long. When I was a kid, men wore buzz cuts, like the haircuts that they got in the military. And I remember my father always, you know, cutting my hair so short and saying, you know, I'm giving you a man's haircut, you know, I'm not going to have you looking like a girl. And they were really concerned about that. Yeah. And so by the time I was in my teens, all the boys had long hair, we wore bell bottoms, Some of us wore earrings,
Yeah.
right? It was like, and that was normal. And if you didn't dress like that, you were weird, right?
Yes.
So the paradigm shifted in a very short period of time. You know, in just less than 2 decades, from my childhood to my teens, the paradigm shifted so radically that what it was to be a man or a boy or to be a masculine man was so put into question that it was normal. Now today, the paradigm is shifting again. What it is to be a woman and what it is to be a man is being put into question. And so when I say a feminized world, I'm not saying that as a criticism. The world has become more feminine. And so in order to say that, I need to be able to distinguish what I mean by that. Feminine energy is dependent upon a provider, protector. Not because she can't go out and do it herself, right? But because she chooses to maintain a feminine energy. She adapts to whatever circumstances are there.
Yes.
And that is part of what her value is.
Yes.
Right? She's valuable because she adapts to whatever's going on. She's very adaptable.
Yes.
Some people would say that's pliable or they don't have a backbone. No, that's not true. It's a choice. It's a choice to adapt and to provide what they provide. The feminine side enhances experience. Whatever is going on, and I've often made a joke about it, if there were only men around, if there weren't any women, there wouldn't be beautiful colors. There wouldn't be the magnificent poems and music and paintings and creations made by men very often as an elevation of the soul triggered by their relationship to the feminine. So it is the feminine aspect, whether you're a man by gender or a woman by gender, it is that feminine aspect which enhances and brings beauty to life. If we were talking about a flower or a tree, we would say the roots or the stem were the masculine part, which is supportive, right? And the feminine would be the fruit and the flower or the tree that collects sun, gives it to the masculine, to the roots, and the roots feed and support the feminine. So that's a good image. You know, we see it in nature at all times. Energy flows from the masculine towards the feminine who gives back. The paradigm of yin and yang. Yin and yang is an expression, a Taoist or Chinese expression of the masculine and the feminine energies. And we all know the yin yang symbol, the circle with the two things inside that represent these two sides. But what most people, they just fail to notice, and yet it's right there in front of our eyes. If you look at a yin-yang symbol, you will see that there's a white side with a black dot in it, and a black side with a white dot in it, and that they are not two things, they are actually one thing made up of two parts, and at the heart of each one is the next. At the heart of a woman is a warrior. If you ever question that, just try to hurt the child of a mother and see what happens. Okay? Threaten the child in any way, and you'll see the warrior in the woman. You'll see something far more masculine than you had anticipated. Women have this masculine aspect that's very tight and very solid, and they choose to manifest feminine, their gift as a feminine energy. The masculine, on the other hand, no matter how hard and tough and tattooed and muscled up they are, have a heart that's very tender and very soft and very gentle and very kind. At the heart of the hardest warrior is a very tender man. I would not want men to lose that any more than I would want women to lose their masculine part. So when we put a masculine man and a feminine woman who have a natural tendency to be that way, you came into this world in a feminine body. It has all of that feminine stuff, right?
Yes.
Mine came into the world, it has all this masculine stuff. I do not believe that that's an accident. I do not believe that we are born capriciously masculine or feminine. I believe that the spirit is much grander than that and much greater than that. I believe that your spirit is much greater than any single lifetime that you may be experiencing, and that we are born into circumstances of our choosing to a certain extent. If you were born with feminine aspects, why not explore the opportunity that is? And why not give that as a gift? And if you're born as a man, why not give that gift to the world? My first exploration of this work was called Manhood as Contribution. This really came after the experience of living in a masculine, very masculine environment, or raised by manly men in my father's generation, and then evolving into a more feminized man as the 60s came about. I grew my hair long, I played the guitar, I wrote poetry, and this is a stage of development for men. And then watching that evolution take place, I could see how you could become both masculine and feminine and find a balance between the two. And then I saw that in that time, when women were searching for men to get in touch with their feminine side and to be more feeling. This was like a thing, right? It was in the movies, it was everywhere. It was like, men should be, there was, it was called the women's movement, okay, and still going on. The only thing that actually got liberated, and I was there from the beginning to the end to the present, and I was very conscious and aware of what was going on, all right, both for myself or the people around me. What got liberated in women's liberation was the feminine part of men and the masculine part of women. All of a sudden, women were raising a fist. All of a sudden, women were marching and getting angry or tough. All of a sudden, women were making demands, taking very masculine actions. Now, it started out like we want to be paid equal pay for equal work. Women were paid, and still are today, a lot less than men. It started a movement in which women became more masculine, men became more feminine. Now there's been sort of a pushback against that, and you've seen that brought on by people like Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger and all that, right? So the tough guy movies started, right, in which the heroes were these hyper masculine, super tough warrior guys, right? Very unfeeling and tough and warrior type characteristics. By that time, the men who were raising sons had become very feminized, and so they were sort of raising their sons in a very feminine way and encouraging them, rather than to be more masculine, encouraging them to be more feminine.